Minutes to let everybody in, but we will be getting started here momentarily for everybody coming in. We appreciate you coming out tonight. If your camera is on, please turn your camera off. That's going to Paul, Lon, Dan, Steve, you guys can leave yours on. But everybody else, it's going to help us with the delivery of the meeting tonight because this is going to take a lot of bandwidth from the intraweb. So, and we're still cranking up participants here. So we'll give it a few more minutes before we get started.
No clicky, no worky.
Yeah.
Ooh.
We're over 145 right now, from what I see.
We're still flying.
Okay, good deal.
Who's
got the cameras on? All right. As you're coming into the meeting, if your camera is on, please go ahead and turn that off and go ahead and mute yourself. You should have came into the meeting on mute, but go ahead and make sure you are muted. We will be addressing questions and throughout, and then as well at the end of the meeting via the chat. And then at the end of the meeting, we'll have time to come off of mute and address those. And Dan, as you work through the last batch of those, you let me know how we're doing.
Just a couple stragglers right now.
Okay.
We're at 154.
Super. Yeah. All right. We'll give it just another minute here. At 7:35, we'll get going. I got one more minute to tick off on my clock, and we'll get things started for everybody coming in. All right, 7:35 on my clock here. It looks like everybody should be let in already. So if anybody else yep, go ahead. You can keep rolling them in. We'll get started with everybody here though. So welcome everybody to the 2024 USA Softball Minnesota State Umpire meeting, the Zoom edition. We're glad you could make it today. Just a few housekeeping items before we get going. There's a few of you that have your cameras on still. If you could go ahead and turn those off. I don't want to have to call you out by name, but I'm going to tell you everybody can see who you are. Thank you. So it'll help us with bandwidth and delivery of today's meeting, since this is internet based and the broadband is a issue from time to time. So we moved to this format last year to try things out, to deliver our opening meeting message to everybody across the state. It seems to be well received. Tonight we've got over 155 participants, and there may be a few more showing up. But we will also record this. So if you know of anybody down the road that didn't get an opportunity to attend this evening, this is being recorded. So we'll be able to host that on our mnsoftball.com website for umpires that weren't able to attend tonight for whatever reason, to go ahead and review that later down the road. We've got an action-packed agenda, but as far as questions go, a couple of ways we're going to handle questions this evening. One, please go ahead and enter them in the chat. We've got some individuals that'll be online between Lon and Jason that can monitor the chat for us, and they can either answer the questions in the chat, or we can leave them until the end if there's some additional things that come up. And as well, at the end of the meeting, we will open it up to chat. We'll open up the microphones so that you're able to ask questions, and we'll do that in an orderly fashion by having folks raise their hand on the Zoom function, and then we'll try to address those questions at the end of the meeting. But we've got some good participants tonight that'll be presenting, and we'll get things rolling right now. So let's get that plugged in. Perfect. Tonight's agenda, you're going to meet the state umpire staff here, and we're going to just briefly let you know what our role in umpiring softball in Minnesota is all about. We'll talk about the 2024 rule changes. We will take a look at the rule book and the umpire manual, which last year moved to online. Lon's going to cover some slow pitch items for us. Jason's going to cover some fast pitch items for us. And we've got Steve Riswald that joined us this evening from South Dakota, but he's going to be on with a regional update on USA softball. We'll talk about national championships, kind of multiple topics underneath that. We'll talk about umpire advancement and training and education options. And then finally, we'll just review how to get registered if you have not already for the 2024 season. So to start things off, though, what I'd like to do is I'm going to introduce our state commissioner, Dan Pfeffer. And for those of you that don't know, Dan runs softball for USA Softball in Minnesota. He runs a couple of the fast pitch leagues. He runs some slow pitch tournaments throughout the year. But Dan is 12 months active with the game of softball in Minnesota. Not only that, but Dan is very active at the national level with the USA Softball National Office in Oklahoma City, to the point where Dan has recently been elected to be the president of USA Softball for the next couple of years. He's currently in a 2-year role and position of president-elect, and then he will move into the head position 2 years from now. But I will turn it over to Dan, and he will talk to you a bit about the USA softball program in Minnesota. And you're on mute.
Sorry, I had to cough and forgot to unmute. Thanks, Dallas. So I'm Dan Pfeffer. I'm the state commissioner for Minnesota, and I will be the president of USA Softball, excuse me, in 2 years. And so I'm on the board of directors for 6, and I'm super happy to help USA Softball at a national level to make the game better for not only you, but the teams and the participants. So I'll just give you a quick update. People are texting me. I try to not be distracted here, but so nationally, so just so you know, we register more than triple the teams and umpires than the next biggest association. So things are going real good for USA Softball, and participation is increasing at the local level, national level, sometimes not so much, but we're working on that. We are hosting, speaking of nationals, we are hosting some nationals in Minnesota. The men's super slow pitch and AA slow pitch will be held in Shakopee the weekend after Labor Day. And men's C slow pitch will be hosted at Prairie Island on Labor Day weekend. And then North Mankato or Caswell Park is hosting 16 and under A fast pitch nationals for the girls. So that, I mean, we've got 4 of the most premier nationals that USA Softball has in their inventory. Locally, we register around anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 slow pitch teams, and then roughly 2,500 fast pitch teams, girls fast pitch teams. And then they'll be participating in some states and other events. And those include states are basically at Prairie Island in August, and the fast pitch states are basically everywhere. But the 8s, 10s, and 12s play on June 29th through 30th. And the 14U and high schoolers play on July 20th through 21st. And then after that, we have a special event for girls fast pitch, which is the Monster Championships. Those are at the end of July and early August, and they're in the metro area, and the high school kids are at Rochester. If you are interested in working in any of these events, I'd encourage you to contact your assigners or any of the 3 UICs, Minnesota UICs, on this conference call, and they'd be glad to help you out. Dallas, take it away.
Super.
Unless you have questions for me, I'll take questions.
Yeah, we'll hold them to the end. We'll burn through some stuff. If you folks do have questions, just make a note for Dan, and we'll try to grab those at the end for you. But thank you, Dan, and congratulations again on being elected to the president of USA Softball. And we look forward to your guidance and tutelage moving forward. So on that note, we will introduce the local folks here that handle things in the state of Minnesota for you. So first of all, I am Dallas Affelbacher. I'm the state umpire in chief. Lon Sorensen handles the slow pitch side of things. Lon, if you want to raise your hand, even though I see your name is highlighted there. And then Jason handles the fast pitch side of things. So, and kind of what our role is so you folks know, is from the state umpire staff side of things with USA Softball in Minnesota here, it's our role to develop umpires to help them get ready for national championships. Dan already listed a handful of national championships that Minnesota's hosting, but every year we send dozens of umpires off to national championships to represent Minnesota, and at every different level that we have: fast pitch, slow pitch, men's, women's, girls, youth, you name it, we've sent people. Our role as well, so you're aware, is to provide guidance for advancement. If you want to move up in the ranks of softball, whether it be in the fast pitch world, the slow pitch world, and progressing all the way up through, potentially umpiring the Olympics, that is our role, is to assist you to get to those levels that you want to obtain, and using whatever means possible. So we're here to ensure that everybody that is working is actually registered with USA Softball. So the leagues and the cities and the teams all get registered with USA Softball when they're playing. The next caveat to that is to make sure that the umpires are. If you do not register in your working games, then those leagues and teams and cities and tournaments that you're working, you're putting their protections in jeopardy. And as well, you're kind of opening yourself up to some issues. So at the end of this, we'll talk about registration. And if you have questions on that, please let us know afterwards. So it's our role to establish a training and evaluation opportunities for you as umpires to help you get better and improve at whatever pace and whatever level you want to improve at. The state level UIC folks are very integral in the assigning of our state tournaments. Dan mentioned some of those that are coming up towards the end of the year here. But we get involved in that level of things, not so much the weekend tournament things, not so much your league stuff, but when it comes to the state and national level things, that's where we have the most involvement. And then it's our job to communicate with the local assigners on a plethora of things. Dan mentioned, if you are interested in and want to communicate your ambitions to umpire a national championship, either that Minnesota is hosting or one outside of Minnesota, then you are able to let your assigner know, and then we'll communicate with them that message coming back to us. Dan, do I see your hand raised? You're on mute.
If it is, I apologize.
Okay, I just see a yellow board. There we go. All right, cool. So that's our role, what we do with USA Softball in the state here. Most of the games that we're all working, and I'm going to go back to Lon and Jason and Dallas, we're all working umpires ourselves. Whether it's college, high school, USA Softball, whatever's going on, we are all working games ourselves, so we understand the things that you're going through. But for those of you that might be new or don't understand the process, most of your games will be umpired through weekend tournaments and your local league games, that get played Monday through Friday. So for those types of assignments, you're going to be working with your local league assigner. If you're already a working umpire and you know who that is, that's fantastic. If not, we can assist you in finding one, or if you're looking for additional games, we can assist you in finding additional assigners. So same thing with the weekend side of things. Everything for the most part, except for our state tournament level things, are done with a weekend tournament assigner or assigners that the tournaments partner with to have secure their umpires and to do the scheduling and get them on the ball diamond. So, and then finally, like I mentioned, if you are looking to get with an assigner, expand the number of games you have, contact us, and all of our contact information, I'll show you where it is at the end of our presentation here. And we will get you aligned with an assigner in the area of your choosing. And when I say area, I don't just mean geography. I mean, if you want to work higher level, we will help you find an assigner that's handling the higher level leagues or games or tournaments. So both geography and level of play, we will assist you with to get you paired with the proper assigner so that you are, again, advancing and growing your umpire career as you deem you would like to. So, all right, every year we've got playing rule changes And this is all at the national level. So when we talk about playing rule changes, these are what are published and all the national championships are played by. The majority of our leagues and tournaments utilize these rules as well, but they might have some deviations. So when you are working your leagues or tournaments, just make sure you know the playing rules you're playing under. And if you have any deviations due to participation or field constraints or whatever might happen that the local tournament or league deems they need to have some additional playing changes, rule changes, just make sure you know what you are operating under. So again, the things that we talk about here are at the national level, but that is the rule book that we primarily operate under. So I'll jump into these and we'll kind of buzz through them. Some will have some substance, some may not apply to you, but we'll still burn through them here. So rule 3, this is uniforms. They've put in an exception for what is required for the lower levels of slow pitch. And the only uniform required are shirts of that are similar in color with a number. Previously, there used to be other uniform items that were required at the championship level, and from hats to pants and everything had to match. But we're looking for participation, and we want to keep the game alive and growing and operating. So we're willing to work with the teams to loosen up the uniform requirements. And you can see the women's and co-ed previously were not covered by this exception, but they are now. All right, headwear. This is always a point of contention, especially at the adult level. But ball caps, visors, headbands, sweatbands, pullover, and tied are optional for players. If worn, it doesn't matter what color they are. The colors may be mixed. They don't have to be the same for all team members. But handkerchiefs do not qualify as headwear and cannot be worn around the head or neck. And then plastic visors, for safety reasons, the same situation there. But it does clarify those headbands and sweatbands is why this change was put into place. So just so you're aware of that if you are posed with those questions. All right, ejections or disqualified players. So I highlighted what was added here. I underlined it. And the biggest thing is that once a player is ejected, they are suspended for one additional game, and that ejected participant is restricted from having contact with the team, is not permitted to sit in the stands or dugout or locality, and the ejected player may appeal the additional 1 game suspension to the championship protest committee, which every national championship has. So what this does is it adds that 1 game ejection and as well the appeal process. So the big thing is if you have an ejection, and primarily this addresses the adult side of things. If that player is out of sight and out of sound, is just to summarize it, that's what we want to have. But what we didn't want was when these individuals get kicked out of a game for whatever reason it was, if it's something directed at us or another player, however it happened, we didn't want them just to have carte blanche to go crazy without any additional repercussions. You know, if it's the 6th inning and they decide to fly off the handle, great, they get kicked out for the last inning. Sometimes they don't care about that. But when this additional game is added, that puts more teeth and substance into the rule. So that's what USA Softball has done here as a tool for officials to aid us in umpiring our game, is it gives them that additional game. Now, if they behave themselves and they go quietly, then they can bring it up to the protest committee, and they might say, okay, we'll waive the additional 1 game. But if they don't stop or they continue on and they're a problem even after they've been ejected, then that's where that additional game is certainly going to stick. All right. So this one here is for the fast pitch game. Yeah, a legal pitch is called. The big thing here was we didn't have, when a player was putting a foreign substance on a ball, they could continue doing it and we would just call it illegal pitches. Now what we've done here is if any defensive player continues to place a foreign substance on the ball after the first infraction, they shall be ejected from the game. So if any other substance is found in the pitcher's person, the pitcher shall be ejected. So like I mentioned, the previous rule didn't have any continuation penalty for us. It was strictly an illegal pitch every time. So this got added, and this is for all games of fast pitch, which we found more and more illegal substances are being brought into the youth side of things. So don't just think it's in the adult game or things of that nature, but they are putting substance on the ball, non-approved substances on the ball in the youth level as well. All right, the next one, I put this in here for Al Walsvogel. Those of you that don't know Al, he's from Wisconsin, but they have a good modified following over there. It's the same rule, but just for modified as far as illegal substance. All right, infield fly. If an infield fly is ruled, it has precedence over an intentionally dropped ball. So what this does is it clarifies an interpretation that was out there for years. But in the instance where an infield fly is called, the fielder wants to intentionally drop the ball. So that's the ball is in the glove and then they drop it. We would traditionally rule that an immediately dead ball. But let's say that ball rolls away from that infielder that decides to intentionally drop it. Well, then those runners can advance. So that's why this was put into place, was because there was some confusion on that, where people were killing the ball right away, even though infield fly was ruled. So that's what we're going to go with on that. All right. Okay. This one clears up some things that were previously out there, and this is in the slow pitch game. A courtesy runner is officially in the game. And again, the added part is when reported to the plate umpire. This changes when they're officially in the game in slow pitch, because what would happen previously is they would put a courtesy runner out at second base, but by rule, they weren't in the game until a pitch was thrown. And a few of us have actually lived through that in this state. So this is a good change. So as soon as you're informed in the slow pitch game that courtesy runner is going in, then that is when they are officially in the game. And then if there's an issue with it, the other team can appeal it or protest it. So, all right, big change here in the slow pitch world regarding courtesy runners as well. I know I'm stealing some of Lon's thunder, but it fell under rule changes, so he doesn't mind. A player may be a courtesy runner only once in an inning for any player other than the pitcher, okay? Any other players can run for the pitcher anytime the pitcher is on base. So what we've done, I'm going to buzz through this and just go to the bottom. What it allows is a courtesy runner for any player, and then as well a courtesy runner for the pitcher, all in the same inning anytime they're on base. So what we're finding is in the slow pitch game, the courtesy runner is partially a speed up rule for us now, is what it's turned into. But a lot of the pitchers are wearing full gear as far as shin guards, helmets, additional protective gear in the slow pitch game. So this allows us to get a courtesy runner for them as well as any other player while they are on base if they're batting. So the co-ed side of things, the same situation. It just has to be same gender, which it kind of spells out here in the middle section. But a big addition to the game here is one courtesy runner for any player, and then one additional courtesy runner for the pitcher in slow pitch. All right, that's it on those. Did we have any questions that came up in the chat, gentlemen, regarding rules or anything? Nope, I see head shaking going no, so we're good there. Perfect. Since we're on rules, I'm going to buzz through the rule book and umpire manual, and just to let you know how it works, where to find it, and what it looks like. So last year was the first year we went to primarily the electronic rule book online, and we're a continuation of that. I'm going to tell you in Minnesota, we have a small allotment of rule books of the hard paper copy. If you are interested in receiving one of those, you can find us at a tournament, or you can contact us directly, myself, Lon, or Jason, especially if you're a newer umpire. Let's try to get you a hard paper copy. But these are all downloadable as a PDF. So I have mine on my iPads, and they can be found on our site, www.mnsoftball.com. Go to the umpire registration portion and you scroll to the bottom of the page. and I'll show you this later in the presentation as well, but that's where we're going to house the electronic rule book for you to utilize. If you haven't looked at it yet, it's very user-friendly. You can see on the left-hand side, it spells out all of the different sections of our book, and you can click on those, and it will take you directly to the section. So for this example, I clicked on section 8, batter, runner, and runner, and boom, it brought me right to page 86 where the batter, runner, and runner section started. So it's easy to search. The portions that are new for the year, the rule changes that we just discussed, will be highlighted in the gray, as you can see on the right-hand side with that section. This was last year, slow pitch was stealing, but there were some rule changes surrounding that, and it highlights it in gray. All right. The umpire manual. So what this is the manual that shows us how to umpire, gives us all the guidance, whether it's in the 1, 2, or 3 umpire system. It can be found in the same spot as our rule book on our homepage, mnsoftball.com, and scroll to the bottom of that page and we'll be good. All right, so what's covered in the umpire manual? There's always points of emphasis in there. And what those are traditionally common things from the previous year or kind of hot buttons of things in officiating that we should be re-educating ourselves on or focusing on for the season coming up. It gives definitions of everything that we deal with in the game of softball. There is good guidance on social media. So social media, I think, is probably going to stick around for a bit. I don't know about you folks, but it's out there everywhere. I have none myself. I've been fortunate to stay off of it. But for those of you that do have social media, please be diligent in what you post out there and refrain from commenting on other people's calls, officiating, because as an official, you do have a unique knowledge base, but let the people that are in charge or let the people from higher up address those things, because you don't want to be one that's commenting on somebody's information. One, it's wrong. Two, it looks like we're judging other umpires. But just keep your social media stuff to a minimum. And another side of that, probably stay away from leading up to your tournament or event, posting where you're going to be at. I know we're all excited about where we're going and what we're doing, but to let people know we're going to be there, it can cause some issues down the road. So other topics in the umpire manual that are reviewed talks about the elements of a successful umpire, what it takes to be a good umpire, what are the characteristics, what are the personality traits, what are the responsibilities. It spells out our signals. Every play that we have available in the game of softball has a signal attached to it, and it spells out the proper signals to use and when to use them. It refers to plate mechanics from our setup to our movement to handling situations, the same with base mechanics, and it'll spell out fly ball coverage again in the 3 umpire and 2 umpire system. So I'm going to review a couple pieces of information in the umpire manual for those of you that haven't used the electronic version before or haven't seen it. But this is what one of the pages looks like. You will find the information. This one's a runner on first only, and in the 2 umpire system, and it talks about starting positions. Then it'll lead you to the situation. What are the runners going to be doing? Where's the ball going? And what happens? It's going to review the plate umpire. What are their responsibilities and what are their movements going to be based on the runners and the ball? Same with the base umpire. And it's got videos for us. If you can see on the right-hand side, everywhere it says play video is an area that we can choose and select. And it's actually going to play the video of a ball being put in play, where the runners go, and where we should be moving to. So this is a great training tool and opportunity, especially if you want to move into 2 umpire or 3 umpire assignments, so that, yes, we can, I'll read the manual and see what it says, but for us to visually be able to see it, it goes a lot smoother as far as applying it. So I'm going to jump ahead here. We'll hit that play video button, and it's going to walk us through the situation that is happening. When you are hitting the play button, you will have audio. Unfortunately for today, I'm going to be your audio commentator regarding what happens here. But somebody is narrating everything that's happening on each of these plays when you go on and choose the play button. So we'll jump through it. We'll watch this play out and we'll focus on what's going on. So here we had that runner on first and that ball is hit to the outfield. You can see the base umpire comes and button hooks in the 2-umpire system and takes that runner. They have both plays at first and second. Actually, Lon, are you hearing the audio? Okay. All right.
No.
Nope. Thank you. Okay. So, and then we're showing when that lead runner is going to round second and go to third base, who's got that coverage, and that's the plate umpire. They move directly to the holding zone because there's not a play happening there yet. And then we can see the base umpire take the runner to second. As that play comes home and the runner comes home, it shows you where to set up and how to position yourself and get an unobstructed view of the play and see the play and then make the call. So it's mildly comical to watch, but it's very informative. Our game is so situational that it's almost impossible to get everything covered if we try to do live video with all of these plays. So USA Softball did a great job producing this information, doing the commentary, and giving you the guidance. So this is one of the great training tools you have out there as a USA Softball umpire to utilize in learning the 1-umpire, 2-umpire, and 3-umpire mechanics and situations. All right, we'll buzz through this again. So on that note, I'm going to hand it over to Lon Sorensen, and he's just going to review a couple things that he picked as hot buttons for this year, and I will let him go at it.
All right, guys. Hey, well, thank you for stopping in and checking in with us tonight, guys. So, looking at the points of emphasis mainly for slow pitch, I'm having you guys look at pages 16, 17 of the umpire manual. A lot of this stuff was added to the umpire manual last year, but since a lot of you guys and the gals have not umpired on the slow pitch side up to last year, or maybe during last year during the COVID situations and all that, we did make some adjustments to some of the mechanics and some of the understandings of why we do stuff. But also, so if you can look at pages 16 and 17 and 18 of the umpire manual, I won't go through them all right now with the verbiage right now, but if you can take a look at those will give you a lot of information, and it will point you in the areas of the game that really are big basics and really make for a good game if you do these properly. And look at these points of emphasis when you get a chance. Go ahead and send it down there, Dallas. Sorry for the up. So those guys, yes, and the same thing is some of those that you didn't work last year in 2023. It'd be a great start for your 2024. Go ahead and keep on moving on.
Yeah, I think we're done with your stuff. Jason was going to take over moving forward and review some fast pitch stuff for us. So thanks, Lon. Like I said, Lon handles our slow pitch side of things in the state. Obviously, any time you run into him on the ball diamond, feel free to pick his brain. He has lots of experience and sees a lot of stuff out there. So we will hand it over to Jason Smith. And Jason Smith is going to talk about a very unique topic here in Minnesota. So.
Thanks, Dallas. You working with Dan and the USA Softball Minnesota staff over the last couple of years. Last year, we instituted a zero tolerance policy. This was to try to curb the bad behavior that we were experiencing as officials by both coaches and the parents. We put inside of our policy that the coaches are responsible for their parents' behavior, both on the field and off the field. So if as officials we are hearing things being said towards us, we can address it with the coach. The coach then has the responsibility over the parents to ensure that the inappropriate behavior is curbed right away. If for some reason we run into a situation where an official does run into severe bad behavior, we have a form that we have placed online on the Minnesota softball website for any official to be able to go in and fill out. What it does, it's an ejection report. The official then goes and fills it out for us. It is returned to the office, and we have a committee that is put together to review each of the ejection reports, and then it is handled from there to address the suspensions from there. What does the zero tolerance policy entail? The first offense, the official can give the verbal warning to the offending coach. So if we don't want to go to a straight ejection, we can say, hey, coach, this is your warning. Second offense, if coach again hasn't got too far out of line, but we have heard enough for the time being. Hey, coach, you've already received your warning. This is your second offense. We're going to address an out to your team, but not to the individual player. And the third offense, if we've hit our end of the rope, we've said enough is enough. Coach, you're ejected. You have to leave the facility immediately. Any of the ejections that happen of any coach, any player, or any coach, any parent results in a 3-game or 7-day suspension, whichever one is longer. A second ejection in the same season results in a 30-day suspension, and a third ejection results in a lifetime ban from coaching any USA softball activities in the state of Minnesota. This applies to all of the JO youth fast pitch leagues and tournaments. And we encourage every official out there to discuss this during the pregame meeting with the coaches and the captains, saying, coaches, you are responsible for your actions of your players and your parents during the contest that you are participating in. The youth, as officials, we are supported by the Youth First Alliance. Youth First Alliance, when ejection does happen, Youth First Alliance does take over the ejection form from the office. They do a committee review of the incident report, and then they will speak with the offending participant or coach, and they will address the suspensions accordingly.
Super. Thank you, Jason. Do you just want to touch on the fact how this was utilized last year, or what our previous years' experience had been with this?
Absolutely. So we kicked this off, I think, about roughly 2 years ago. It was kind of in its infant stage. Last year, we went full board with it. I believe we ended up with 5 ejections total, with 1 individual getting ejected twice, and each one of them fulfilled their suspensions accordingly, and we're hoping that behavior has been curbed, and we don't want to see this as a prolonged activity in the state of Minnesota.
Yep. So, and again, just for everybody's clarification, this is something we use at the youth level, and whether it's slow pitch or fast pitch at the youth level. And one, it's to give the umpires an additional tool to manage the game, as opposed to just going immediately to ejection. For those instances that might be nitpicky, but don't lead us all the way down the path to ejection, but we want the discussion to stop. So if you have questions on that, very specific and unique rule, and that is unique just to Minnesota, again, please let us know and we can address those. All right, I'm going to steal the mic here for a little bit longer, cover some softball points of emphasis. So Lon covered slow pitch, or Jason covered fast pitch. I have some things just from my travels throughout the year that have come up, and that I just wanted to kind of mention as highlights to make sure everybody's on the same page with. So the first thing, when we're umpiring in the 2-umpire system, for whatever reason, there's this misnomer out there that we don't go out as base umpires in the 2-umpire system. And we want to, when we have 2 umpires on the ball diamond, we want to obviously get the calls correct, but we want to be in a credible position And if we can, take the heat off that home plate umpire on fly balls that are diving catches, that are plays at the fence, that are plays near a line, or you've got a bunch of fielders coming together at the same spot to catch the ball, and it, hits one or two of them and bounces off of them and might have hit the ground or not. So we still want to cover fly balls in the two umpire system. Those ones we call trouble balls. We're not going to go on every fly ball where somebody's going to get a glove on it like we do in the three umpire system. That's our directive. But still pregame with your partner what those situations are when you're working two umpires to assist, have the base umpire take those fly balls so we can have a credible look and get those calls correct and take the heat off that home plate umpire. So keep that in mind. There were a couple times last year that I heard that we had an injury on the field that required medical attention, and the umpires wouldn't stop play. So our rule book supports calling time when we have an injured player that us as the umpire deems as injured, that we may have to get medical attention or we have something serious that's happened. When we do this, we will be awarding the bases that we feel the batter and the runners would have obtained had we not called time. So this is not my personal preference. It's not Jason's. It's not Dan's. Our rule book supports this for us. So what we heard was there were times that they just let everybody keep running, and the players bleeding out in the field or something of that nature. They got hit in the head with a ball, which is very severe, and they wouldn't stop until everybody stopped running the bases. Well, as umpires, safety comes first when we're out on the ball diamond. So just make sure you understand we can call time and award bases when we have an injury that requires immediate attention. We mentioned earlier in the infield fly situation, an intentionally dropped ball. So this is something that we're seeing. Historically, we've seen it in the slow pitch game. We're seeing it more in the fast pitch game as well these days, to where somebody is steering the ball to the ground with their glove, but it's not something we would have ever deemed to be a catch. So what's happening is when that's happening, umpires are calling the ball dead, utilizing the intentionally dropped ball rule. But if it's not a ball that is in the glove and then released with a conscious effort, as opposed, it's just steered to the ground, either sometimes with the back of the glove or very blatantly with the palm of the glove, we want to make sure that we're calling that correctly. Because again, what can happen is if a defender decides they want to steer a ball to the ground to potentially get multiple runners out because they think an infield fly is going to be called, or they can get multiple outs, that ball might roll away from them and go farther away, and those runners would advance anyways. So just make sure you're clear on the intentionally dropped ball rule versus them just steering it to the ground to potentially get additional outs. And this one has come up a few times in multiple levels of softball, is the batter leaving live ball territory while it's their turn at bat. We see this when batters may get confused on the count and they might think they struck out and they walk off the field, and in essence, after that last pitch, the count is now 3-2. The word, and I've seen it, that's been happening, is that umpires are calling that batter out because they left the field of play. And whether they're getting talked into it by another coach or it's they don't know the rule completely, but we call runners out when they leave the field of play, and they step into the dugout or out of play or whatever it is, once they become a runner. So when a batter does this because they're confused on the count or whatever happens, say they have a medical issue and they have to step into the dugout and, address something or an equipment issue, we don't call them out because they are still a batter. So up until the point that the batter becomes a batter runner or a runner, then they're allowed to leave dead ball territory, and enter dead ball territory and not be called out. So we saw this a few times where players literally were confused on the count. They left the field of play. And then the umpires, like I said, got talked into, well, that batter stepped out of live ball territory, so she's out. So please understand when the leaving live ball territory rule comes into play. And again, just one more time, it's when somebody is actually a runner. So we're good there. And one more, I think, for me. Yeah. So interference in the USA softball rulebook, interference is deemed by impeding, hindering, or confusing the situation. What we see in multiple levels of game, adults and in youth, is a runner that runs to first base when they're not entitled to. And what they're doing at times is they're doing it to intentionally confuse the defense to allow other runners to advance. So let's say the count is 2-1, and we have a runner on first base, and the pitch comes in, which makes it 3-1, and the batter runs to first base like she just walked. So ball 4. And that allows the runner from first to advance to second. Well, what they did was they just confused the whole situation there, because that runner's not entitled to run until it's ball 4, or she hits the ball and becomes a batter runner. So we want to make sure that we're on top of that side of things and not allow it, because we don't want the offense to gain any type of advantage because of something they did to confuse the situation. So by rule, we would have interference there and have an out. The other side of this is when a batter is batting and strike 3 is called or swung at, and they decide they want to run through first base anyways. And again, they're not allowed to because the base is occupied. And then the catcher decides, well, I got to throw down there. She's running. So they're not entitled to run to first base because they're out and first base is occupied. So we want to make sure that we're getting the interference on that as well, because we're not going to let the offense gain an advantage by confusing the situation. So those are just kind of a handful of things that I've ran into the past few months. So make sure you're up to date on those. And again, if you have questions, nail one of us down and we can update you on that. All right. For tonight's meeting, we have a special guest all the way from South Dakota joining us. Our regional UIC, Steve Riswald, was kind enough to get on this evening. And if Steve wants to take his camera, turn that on and come off of mute, he's got a few update items for the region that he's going to cover with us. And there's Steve. So go ahead and take it away, sir.
All right. Thanks, Dallas. Lots of good updates there on the rule changes and lots of, good points of emphasis and things like that. And Lon and Jason, thanks for your slow pitch and fast pitch updates. Just a quick PR thing with USA softball from the national level. Just remember that the only way to international competition as an umpire is through USA softball, to the WBSC, which is the World Baseball Softball Confederation, to international events, Pan Am events, World Cups and things like that, and ultimately to the Olympics. That the only road is through USA softball, as we are the national and governing body for softball in the United States. Again, Dan, thanks for being on and your support of the Umpire program, and obviously we all look forward to working even more with you as you take on the presidency of USA softball here in a couple of years. So we're pretty excited that our northern region is represented so well. So USA softball is broken into 10 regions, and Minnesota, you're in the northern region, along with North Dakota, South Dakota, Wisconsin, and Metro Minneapolis. I think Paul Kramer's on here as well. Paul's the UIC of Metro Minneapolis, and obviously Paul and Scott, the commissioner in Minneapolis, work really well with Minnesota softball as well. And Paul, thanks for being on and for what you do for our region as well. One quick note on the slow pitch courtesy runner for the pitcher. we've had some discussions at the national level to clear that up a little bit more than the book has. I think there's something that plays the clarifications online at off the official USAsoftball.com website as well. But so we've had the regular courtesy runner rule for adult slow pitch for a few years now, and it's gone pretty well, and it's really popular with players. You know, whether we think it's tedious or not as umpires, the players really like it, and you know they love this courtesy runner deal. So when we added it for the pitchers now, it was brought in and sold by the players partially, in that it's going to speed things up, because I think as Dallas mentioned and a little bit, that a lot of our slow pitch pitchers are putting on equipment now. Many are wearing the face masks. A few are wearing chest protectors. A few are wearing shin guards as they pitch. So to get that equipment on and off takes a little bit of time. And if you get a courtesy runner for those pitchers, then that will speed it up a little bit with them being able to get their equipment on in the dugout. But ultimately, it's just about these slow pitch guys and gals really liking courtesy runners, and so we have to be okay with that. One note: so we've had the regular courtesy runner rule for a while, which says you can do it once an inning. So if the same player came up a second time that had a courtesy runner in the same half inning, they didn't get a courtesy runner the next time. The pitcher rule here is different. If the pitcher gets on multiple times in the same inning, the team bats around, the pitcher gets a courtesy runner every time they come up if they want one. It could be the same courtesy runner. It could be 2 or 3 different courtesy runners if they bat around that many times. One other restriction to this is, once you've been the courtesy runner for a pitcher in an inning, you can no longer be the courtesy runner for the other player in that half inning. And once you've been the regular courtesy runner for anybody but the pitcher, you cannot courtesy runner for the pitcher the rest of that half inning. So keep that in mind. And for those of you that work both and the fast pitch people, just know in slow pitch then that we reset this every half inning. Whereas fast pitch, courtesy runners are tied to the pitcher and tied to the catcher for the entire game once they run for a pitcher or catcher. In this slow pitch rule, just know that this resets every half inning. But once they've been the courtesy runner for the pitcher, they can't be the regular courtesy runner the rest of that half inning. And once they've been a regular courtesy runner, they cannot courtesy run for the pitcher the rest of that half inning. So hopefully that clears things up a little bit. And I know it's tedious for some of you. One more part of this that I'll suggest and maybe stress is that in all of your games, I mean, some of you might be doing 3 or 4 or 500 slow pitch games a year, and it's going to go off great, and it's not going to be a problem. The courtesy runners are going to come in and out, and the other team's going to know what's going on, not a problem. until that one time when there's a question of did this player run? Did they not run? Did they run for the pitcher? Did they run for the third base person? Did they run for the center fielder? I would caution you, as tedious as it's going to seem as an umpire, to record these courtesy runners every time. Maybe even in games that you don't have a lineup card handed to you, keep a sheet of paper and keep track of these courtesy runners, because it's not going to be an issue 990 sometimes out of 1,000, but the time or two that's going to be an issue. It's going to be a big part of the game and a big question mark about who can run and things like that. So keep that in mind, and especially as we move into championship play and stuff, that we're keeping track of those courtesy runners as well. National championships. Dallas mentioned most of them. Dan mentioned that Minnesota's been fortunate to get some of our very, very best championships in USA softball on the fast pitch and the slow pitch side. So there's opportunities there. The men's super and double A slow pitch that's going to be in Shakopee, and the men's C slow pitch that's going to be at Prairie Island. Those two, the umpires are assigned, called it the at-large status by Kevin Ryan, our director of umpires. Minnesota puts in nominations along with the other associations in our region. I kind of compile those nominations and send them in to Kevin, and he selects umpires. But if you have some interest, in those big slow pitch events, mention it to Lon, let him know, because there may be possibility for fill-in umpires as we get closer to those championships for sure. That fast pitch championship in North Mankato, work with Jason, work with Dallas if you're interested. Rich Paulmeyer is going to be the UIC for that event, but ultimately Dallas as the UIC for Minnesota will select that roster for North Mankato, and I'm sure obviously he'll work closely with Jason and his assigners. But there'll be opportunities there, and then outside of Minnesota, just within our region, there'll be some fast pitch opportunities in Rapid City, South Dakota, and Fargo, North Dakota. Have some Northern Territory girls fast pitch events that umpires could go as a host exchange status to some of those events. So again, work with your signers, Jason and Dallas on those. On the slow pitch side, Bismarck, North Dakota is hosted a women's E-Rec slow pitch, and Sioux Falls may be hosting a girls slow pitch again. We're double checking all of the availability there for girls slow pitch, but if so there's some opportunities there for umpires. And on the slow pitch side, of course, work with your signers and Lon and Dallas on some of that. Normally men's slow pitch, we've got some of the D and E Northerns in our region. This year, just the Northern Territory championships all happen to be in other regions right around us in the Northern Territory. So like Iowa, Michigan, Kansas, and Illinois have the D and E Northern Territory slow pitch championships for the men. So there's potential for host exchange there too, working with those states. Last year, like Dallas says, Minnesota's always represented well at national championships and at some of the bigger ones. Mankato was able to host North Mankato was able to host the men's major fast pitch last year, and Dallas and Tom Keller both worked that event. We had the super and double A slow pitch in Shakopee last year, and it's going to be there again this year. Lon Sorensen worked that event for us at USA Softball, and Lon also went to the border battle in Cleveland with Team USA and Team Canada and some of the games there. Some of the upper fast pitch stuff, Chad Liddell went to the 16 gold last year. Men's A and B slow pitch in Oklahoma City, Roderick Wilcox represented Minnesota down there, did very well. So there's, like Dallas said, there's always opportunities, and Minnesota does a great job training umpires and get them ready for these events. So when they come in front of Kevin Ryan and things like that, he's always willing to use some Minnesota umpires. Training wise, I think Dallas is going to mention this more towards the end, but there's probably going to be a national umpire school in Minnesota next year in the spring of 2025. They're kind of working out the details with Dan and some things. So I think Dallas is going to address that, but know that there's a good chance that we'll have a national umpire school in Minnesota in the spring of 2025. At the end of this year, in the fall of 2024, we do have our fast pitch advanced camp for USA Softball still coming up. That's October 17 to 20. So mid to late October in North Carolina, there's a chance for our USA Softball fast pitch umpire camp. It's a situation where you're in the classroom for a couple of days, 2.5 days, and then you go out on the field and you work an upper level tournament, and you get evaluated by the staff members that are there live, and then they'll video the games and with the evaluators audio over the video for you to take home and some things like that. So look at that as an opportunity. Nationally, one thing that's changing is our UIC clinic. We're still going to have it on the odd number of years, but it's moving from the February time frame. For years, it's been that first weekend in February on the odd years in Oklahoma City. Going forward, we're going to have the UIC clinic in conjunction with the National Council meeting. So in 2025, our UIC clinic's going to move to the beginning of the National Council meeting. The dates are still being worked out. It's going to be in late October, early November in 2025 in Oklahoma City. So our UIC clinic will be Thursday evening, Friday, Saturday, and roll right into our National Council meeting if people stick around for that. The Hall of Fame banquet's always on Saturday night, so it'll kind of roll into that and into our National Council meeting. But several Minnesota umpires, you've been to the UIC clinics in the past, but like I said, just going forward, know that we won't be in February of 2025. It's going to be pushed back now to late October, early November of 2025, and it'll be in conjunction with the council meeting. So as USA Softball works that out with their partners, the convention center and the hotels, we'll get that word out. And I think that's the major things I wanted to touch on for you from a regional level. And again, thanks to Dallas and Lon and Jason in here, and to Paul Kramer in Minneapolis and everything they do for the region. A lot of what I do is just administrative with working out some of these things at the national level, but it's it's your state and assigners and things that really push it for USA Softball, and we appreciate all that.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, thank you. Just one more thing, if you can elaborate and talk about the National Umpire School, what the format is like, and what people can expect from that level for what we're looking to host next year.
Sure. So at a National Umpire School, we roll in on we go all day Saturday, and in the past few years now, we've tried to make Saturday a little bit longer and shorten Sunday up. It's always been a kind of a 2-day school, and we start with the basics and get into a lot of topics, rule topics, and philosophical topics of umpiring, game management, and we spend a lot of time with rules and now with video becoming even easier to obtain. And we're able to pull a lot more softball video from national championships, from the college game, from the high school game, things like that we've got a lot of video now that we can incorporate. Like Dallas is talking about interference and obstruction and some of those things. We can teach the rule, talk about the rule, talk about how to apply it, use the right verbiage, use rule book words and things like that. When you're explaining it, we can go through some videos. We definitely go through all the plate mechanics and the 2-umpire system and the 3-umpire system, and you showed a couple of videos from our umpire manual. We talk about those things a little more in depth at a national umpire school. We'll go out onto the field. If the weather's good enough, we'll get outside on a field, or we'll be in a gymnasium or something and work on some drills, work on signals, and then work on plays at first base, work on plate mechanics, and getting umpires hopefully in a better position with their slot and their plate stance and going set. Just finding ways to get umpires in the best position to see the pitches and to see the plays on the bases to give you a better chance of getting them right. And that's kind of the goal of national umpire schools. And then we delve more into discussions of like, how do I move up? How do I work at a different level? How do I get to some of these events? We talk about expectations of umpires at national championships, and just a lot of those sort of things. And then we try and get people on the road and shortly after lunch, early afternoon on Sunday, and get people back home. But that's sort of the format and what we try and accomplish at national umpire schools.
Super. Thank you for that information, and hopefully that rung in some of your ears that it's a good spot to get to, essentially to learn how to umpire from the ground up. So we'll keep things moving here for you. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate you joining us tonight. All right. So we're going to roll right into national championship discussion. So as Steve mentioned, we get opportunities to nominate national championship umpires from our region and state. And what we look for, Jason, Lon, and Dallas, we look for recommendations from local assigners, or if you happen to be in front of one of us, then we kind of take note. So that is step one. Step two, we might ask you to attend a high-level weekend tournament, whether it's in the slow pitch or the fast pitch world, just to see how you're umpiring. We can't get all across the state in a summer. As I mentioned, we're all working umpires ourselves. We're on the diamonds. We're pursuing things within our portfolio at different levels. But if you're interested to go to a national championship, we might ask you to go to a high-level fast pitch or a high-level slow pitch tournament just to see how you can umpire. The nice thing about those tournaments too is traditionally we have multiple umpires on the field. We're either working a 2-umpire or a 3-umpire system, which is what you're going to be working at the national championship assignments that you are awarded. So we want to make sure you're ready to go and represent Minnesota accordingly. For those umpires that do move on to a national championship assignment, you do need to complete a USA softball background check and complete Safe Sport. For those of you that receive those types of assignments, we'll work with you on that process to let you know how that plays out. If you are just registering for league and state games in Minnesota, we don't have to complete that process as of yet. That's not to say that's not coming down the road. And another thing we look for is how you represent Minnesota on and off the diamond. If you're great on the ball diamond, but you're a headache off the diamond, that might come into consideration when we decide who we want to send out of state to represent Minnesota from an umpire perspective. So just make life easy on your assigners and your tournament UICs, and we'll be sure to not have to worry about those issues moving forward. When you move on to national championship assignment, you are required to wear the USA softball logoed apparel and uniform. So from the Fleckheimer heather gray pants, potentially the navy pants, to the USA softball embroidered shirts and hats and ball bags. So that is a requirement, just so you know in advance. I just want to put it out there. I know some of your local leagues don't require you to wear this, and that's for you to, your local league assigner will dictate what the uniform is. But anything that we do at the state level, so a state tournament side of things and the national championship side of things, we want to make sure we're in the proper uniform. And you actually do get graded and evaluated at the national championship level on your uniform. So, all right. Every year, we get the opportunity to submit names, and historically it's been in the November timeframe for at-large assignments. We heard Steve Riswald mention a few of these that we are able to send people to, and these are the opportunities that we have where we submit usually one name, potentially two from Minnesota. We give that to Steve Riswald. He assembles the recommendations from the region, and then he sends those on to Kevin Ryan, our national umpire director, and Kevin makes the decisions on who's going to attend these events. The top three are all youth JO fast pitch events. The JO Cup is the highest level softball that USA Softball offers at those age brackets. And then the 18 under gold and 16 under gold are just below that. We have opportunities to send people to the men's major fast pitch side of things. So if you want to pursue anything down that road. And then in the slow pitch side, we have, you can see a few events, 4 events that we submit names for to go to national championships. When you go to these level of championships, your travel is covered and paid for. Your hotel accommodations are covered and paid for. Again, you'll receive game fees and and receive evaluations. And it is a truly professional level event that you're going to. It's not just another weekend tournament. The other token that comes along with accepting these assignments is you do need to commit to the full time frame of the championship event. You can't say, well, I'm available Friday from 3 to 6 or things of that nature. So if you are interested in pursuing national championship opportunities, again, please let us know. And these are the at-large, the largest ones. These don't cover our ones in Minnesota that are a Northern National or a Western or things like that. Now, we do have all these assigned for next year. There may be some additions based on where they're hosted or if people can't accept their assignments. But this happens, again, at the end of our softball year, which is basically November. We'll have to have names in again for this. So keep these in mind if it's something you want to pursue. And again, we can assist you in going down that path. Dan mentioned these earlier, and Steve mentioned them as well. The few championships that we're going to have in Minnesota this year. We've got the Super Slow Pitch and the AA in Shakopee. The Men's Class C Championship will be at Treasure Island. And then North Mankato is going to be hosting the Girls Class A 16 and under West, which brings in teams basically from here all the way to the West Coast and down to the border. So we'll see a good level of ball being played in Mankato for that championship. So we will be securing umpires for the bottom one moving forward. And then, like I mentioned, the top two have already been assigned, but we may have additional opportunity based on their geographical positioning in Minnesota for this year. So, all right. So to help you get better and what's out there for you to assist you in growing as an umpire and as an official. So our rule book, first and foremost, it's electronic, it's online, but knowing the rule book is number one, the utmost important thing you can do. So you are the steward of the game while you're out there. And regardless what level you're working, there's an expectation that you know the rules. Granted, we're going to have some obscure ones that come up from time to time, but in the grand scheme of things, you should be the most knowledgeable one in the ball diamond regarding the rule book. We've got the umpire manual. As I reviewed earlier, that's going to show you positioning and movement and mechanics and signals and situations. So it's going to give you a baseline of information. And then when you get on the field, you can start to apply those things. Or if you run into a situation you're not familiar with, jot it down on your lineup card or in your pocket and go review it in the umpire manual when your game is over or that evening. One of the best things you can do for yourself is to get to a national championship. And why I say this is because there is a formal evaluation process that gets done on every umpire that attends. That's done by the tournament UIC or assistant UIC. And there's 4 categories that get chosen and selected, and you get notes. They'll watch your game. Those are live games going on, and take those not as what did I do wrong, but what do I need to improve to get better? Because if the information's not in front of you, probably you're doing it right. So, hey, work on the couple things they note in your evaluation and use that as a learning opportunity. But there is nothing better than getting an evaluation done at a national championship to help your game. We've got, as I mentioned, during our state championships and some weekend tournaments, you might be receiving observations and input from your UIC, other umpires, or state staff like myself or Jason or Lon. We're there to assist you. Again, it's not us trying to tell you you're not doing this correct. It's like, hey, everything else is looking good. Let's tweak this or fix this, and then move on to the next thing. So please be open to input as an umpire, and that's going to aid you a long way in growing your umpire career. Make sure when you're working games with partners that you are post-gaming. So, hey, what did we do well? What didn't we do well? What can we improve on? Have a discussion about those level of things. And that's going to help you get better as well from the training and educational standpoint. We've been adding a few of these across the region, and I say that, but evaluation tournaments. And these are tournaments where you go and work games and you're getting paid, but there may be an official evaluator at your field to take a look and help you get better. I know we've ran these in the past in the 2-umpire and the 3-umpire system. And Jason's kind of been heading this up for us moving forward. We've used some of the tournaments that he assigns throughout the summer for this level of stuff. So if you're available to participate, please do so because we're just all one big umpire pool and group together. And we want to aid you in getting better and taking some of those higher level assignments. If your assigner has an observation or evaluation program, or if they just come out and watch you work some games, obviously take their input, listen to them, and see what they have to say for you. And we do have the USA Softball Umpire Exam. I know there's been some questions about that. We will get that posted on our MN Softball site, so you can go and take the umpire exam. But that will allow you to take a look at it, see what the answers are, and after you submit your test answers. And the other thing too, just to go back to, again, we are all umpires and officials in Minnesota together. We all work multiple levels of softball, whether it's the age range we work, whether it's college, high school, USA softball, whatever it is. Any opportunity that you have to get to a training event, regardless who's putting it on, is going to benefit you as an official. Whether you go to a clinic for the high school league, or you watch their online clinic, or you are on here with us, or you get in front of us for an evaluation of a national championship, that all applies to the game of softball and what we're all working. So any opportunity you have to get in front of those things and participate in those, please do so. I know it's a little time consuming, but at the end of the day, it's the game of softball. Yeah, each level has its own intricacies, but everything we talk about from philosophy to positioning, it transcends everything that we're working. So do your best to try to seek out some of that information as you deem appropriate. And as Steve mentioned, we are going to be hosting the National Umpire School in 2025. Dates and locations, we're still going to try to figure out. We should have it nailed down shortly, but we will, you heard from Steve, it's a couple-day commitment. Sometimes there's a smaller nominal fee to help us offset the expense we have in getting facilities or bringing in evaluators and trainers. But it is certainly a very beneficial program and tool to help you increase your umpiring level and ability. And I've been doing this 26 years. Every time I go to one, I learn something. So please take a look at that moving forward. So, all right. Any questions before we move on, gentlemen? Chat looking okay? Okay, thank you. All right. So we're going to roll into the registration side of things. If you haven't done so already, we register in Minnesota under www.mnsoftball.com. That is our state's USA softball homepage. That's where we do everything softball related. And here is what the umpire page looks like. When you go to mnsoftball.com, on the left-hand side, you'll see some drop downs. If you select the umpire drop down, then it will show you umpire registration, and you can go ahead and click on that. Once you are inside of there, you can see it has numbers 1, 2, and 3 in the middle of the page. If you have never registered before with mnsoftball.com, go ahead and click that, and it will have you enter your information, and then it will send you an email to verify that it is in fact you. And once you have your account, then number 3, you can go to your dashboard and click on umpire registration. There is a very good tutorial video, and I circled it in the red there, how to register to umpire video. Go ahead and click on that if you need to figure out step-by-step, how do I do this? What does it look like? And it walks you right through it. It's a very simple process. Especially once you do it once, then it's easy to go back in annually. So we do not in Minnesota traditionally use the national site for registrations. One, because we do not require the safe sport and the background checks to be done. So for everybody on here, if you haven't registered yet, use mnsoftball.com, our site where you registered for tonight's meeting, and that'll walk you right through it if you have questions. The rest of this, under the umpire registration side of things, if you scroll down, so once I'm going to go back one page. So once you're on the umpire registration page, this is the top. If you scroll down to the next section, you will see my contact information, Jason's and Lon's. I've been mentioning through the whole meeting, if you have questions to reach out to us, please do so. Granted, we all, again, are umpires. We're on the field, we're traveling, we have careers. So if it takes us, 24 to 48 hours to get back to you, please understand. But as well, you can kind of see all the other information that's down below that you can click on regarding awards, clinics, insurance coverage plan, because when you register, you're covered from liability and injury while umpiring, and the equipment side of things for ordering uniforms if you'd like to do that. If you continue to scroll down this page, you will find we have hosted the umpire manual and the rule book, the electronic versions on there. So you can click on them, you can download them to a PDF, whether it's to your phone, to your tablet, to your computer, whatever's easiest for you to be able to reference. So they are all intuitive, they're user-friendly, and they're much more searchable than the paper copy of the book. So on that note, we are just about on our time, and that is our program for this evening. We will open it up to questions if you'd like to come off of mute, and make sure we got everything addressed in the chat. Lon and Jason, are we all caught up in the chat? Okay.
And
super.
Looks like we are.
Okay. So in an orderly fashion, if you can, if you have a question, what we'd like you to do is type your name in the chat, and then we will call on you, and then we'll have you come off of mute. So if you have something you want to say via audio, then go ahead and type your name in. Otherwise, we will continue to answer the questions that get typed into the chat that way. Phil, go ahead. I see you there. I want you to come off of mute and you can ask your question.
Okay, so this is regarding the new courtesy runner rule, right? So as I understand it, the old rule is the same, but now you can run for the pitcher. Can that
Correct.
person that ran originally for the other runner not run for the pitcher then?
Steve, go ahead and answer.
Yes, that's correct. So that's an update to adding the courtesy runner for the pitcher at any time is if you've been the courtesy runner for the regular part of the rule in that previously in the half inning, you can't run for the pitcher. And once you run for the pitcher, you can't run for the regular courtesy runner rule for the rest of that half inning. And like I said, different from fast pitch that this resets every half inning in slow pitch. So the next inning, they could do things in a different order. But just also know that the pitcher can have a courtesy runner anytime they get on an adult slow pitch. And the regular courtesy runner rule can only be implemented once per inning, and not if the same batter gets on multiple times and batting around situation.
Okay. And the other part to the question is that person that runs for the pitcher cannot be on base if they're up two. Is the same as the courtesy runner rule?
Correct.
Right. So they can't run for somebody and then they end up on base in that inning.
Yep. So that part of the pitcher courtesy runner rule is the same as our regular
good
rule. So the teams have to make sure that they're positioning courtesy runners in the right place, so they're not going to be on base when they come up to bat. Correct.
Perfect.
Okay, if anybody else has any audio questions, I know there's still some questions in the chat being answered via the chat, but if you have audio questions, go ahead and type your name in the chat, and we'll call on you by name. Otherwise, we'll hang on for probably 2 or 3 more minutes here until the 9 o'clock hour. And if those of you want to drop off, Jack Carlson, go ahead, sir.
Hi, Dallas.
Hey, glad to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks. Great job tonight, fellas. Here's my question. I think it's a great rule that you have that you, when you bring the coaches and let them know about the parents, they're responsible for the parents. And let's just say that the parent doesn't leave when, or they're supposed to leave. Is that also an out for the home or visiting team?
You know, if they're not addressing the problem and it continues to be a problem, yes, then we're going to start to penalize, because we need to have some recourse, and we can't let that behavior continue, whether it's from the players, from the coach, or unfortunately from the parents.
Dallas, you tell them that you've got an out. Can you go now? You've got another out. Now the inning's over.
Honestly, from there, like, the whole point of that, Jack, is first we're going to warn them. We're going to say, hey, get your mom and dad out of here, right?
Yep.
The second thing is they've really crossed the line and it's still continuing. So now this is the out. So this should draw the attention to, okay, I really need to deal with this. And then if they don't, we just go, step 3 is ejection of the coach, because he's not taking care of his business.
Okay, that's where I was going, Dallas. So you
Yep.
eject the coach.
That's it. You got
Perfect.
it. And for those of you that don't know the background behind this, it actually came from some of the local district hockey leagues were using this rule, and it's tempered things there. So we thought we'd roll into softball, and
I'm well aware of that one.
As you say, and those that don't know Jack, he has an extensive hockey career. So Jack, good to hear from you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. So for those of you, I know there's a couple questions that were coming in. We will post this on our site, the recording from tonight, if you want to go through and reference it. And as well, we will email it out to all the registered umpires, that the link is available once we get it downloaded, housed, and able to view after the fact. But it looks like that might be it for questions for this evening, and it's 9 o'clock.
Hey,
And
Dallas.
Dan Pfeffer wants to make one more comment.
I was going to say that the girls fast pitch coaches all get a rule book scorebook, and on the back of it is the zero tolerance, kind of what they've been warned about. You could always say to a coach, I see you got a scorebook in your hand. Take a peek at that back page and get back to me, or however you want to handle it. Probably not the way I'd handle it, but they all know about it. They've been warned, and yeah, that would be a good way to handle it, because they know it, they see it, it's in their bag all the time. They always have it in their hands. So
perfect. And as you can tell, that obviously we have the support from the highest level of within our state, all the way down to the assigners and the umpires. So unfortunately, we have to use that rule sometimes, but it is a tool for you to utilize if it comes up. So, all right. Any other
Hey,
parting?
Dallas,
Yep. Go ahead, Phil.
I just have one more thing to say to everyone out there. We are so blessed to have the best staff in the state, and with Riz in the region. And Dan Pfeffer, you got nominated for that position because of who you are. And it's great.
Thanks, Phil. We appreciate it. And
yeah,
we appreciate
Phil,
all your support.
Phil, the check's in the mail.
All right. 9 o'clock, I think we're done. So everybody have a great evening. Dan can stop the recording, and everybody have a great season, and we look forward to seeing you on the ball